welcome to episode number 26 of the Final Circle podcast. This one is going to be a special edition of the podcast because for the first time ever, I am doing this one by myself, solo queue, because the co-host of the podcast, one of my best friends, Andrew, is not available this week. He's actually on his way to the West Coast in the US to attend E3, which is the Electronic Entertainment Expo. If you guys are gamers, I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar with that. And I was going to go with him, but it just really wasn't in my game plan this year. I actually just got back from my vacation a couple months ago that I took back in March. So didn't really work out for my schedule, but I know he's been itching to go for a really long time. He's been trying to convince me to go to Gamescom in Germany and E3 and all this stuff, but those are obviously major trips and kind of major things you need to plan for. Hopefully eventually I'll be able to get there with them. And something that he actually let me know that I wasn't aware of is that only for the past couple of years have the public been allowed into E3, into this convention, which I thought everybody was always allowed to go, just you needed to spend the money on a ticket and to pay to fly there, hotel, all of that stuff. So for a lot of people, it's just not really doable. But it really was only for people in the gaming industry, which I knew that was for. I knew a lot of times you needed to be in the gaming industry, but I thought money could just get you there. But that was wrong. And I think this is interesting because to me, it seemed like, I think it's actually kind of true, that E3 and some of these gaming conventions or expos were actually kind of on the decline because Sony and Microsoft and a lot of other studios were doing their own kind of announcements. You know, Microsoft is big enough, obviously they are, but a lot of these gaming companies are big enough now where they can hold their own press conferences. And realistically, with the explosion of the internet and YouTube and all this stuff, you don't even need to have a major conference to announce a new system or a new game or anything like that. You could just put an awesome trailer out on YouTube or have your own little convention or whatever you want to do. So because of that, I feel like E3 was kind of on the decline, but now that they've opened it up to the public, it seems like it's kind of back on the incline, or it's becoming more popular again. And I think that's kind of just in general with everything because of maybe Comic-Con and all that stuff. I feel like people are more excited about these conventions because it's not just about the games in this instance. For Comic-Con, I know it's like comics and movies and entertainment and a lot of other stuff, but people obviously, there's cosplay, people like to dress up as their own characters. There's a lot of other events that are kind of going on there. It kind of reminds me of like music festivals where you go to see a million different bands play, but there's also a lot of other stuff happening. There's food trucks, there's exhibits, there's art, there's like beer tastings. There's so many other things going on, and it's like a million things in one. So I feel like it's kind of, you go for the whole experience. So again, just to wrap it up, I kind of want to get there eventually. And, he wasn't available to do the podcast because he's got work and was getting ready to leave on his trip, but he did bring his recording software. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do a podcast from his hotel right after the event, or maybe after one of the days. We can get kind of his feedback, what's going on, what it's like, any new games that are coming out. Xbox is supposed to be doing, Microsoft's supposed to be doing an announcement, most likely going to be the announcement of the next console, the next Xbox. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. So I think he picked a pretty good year to go, actually, and I'm excited for him. And speaking of microphones, I actually recorded the beginning of this podcast once already. So if my enthusiasm is a little bit lower, that's probably why. My microphone is actually having issues. I use the USB Blue Yeti, and sometimes I get some major hissing. So if that's happening in this episode of the podcast, I apologize. I'm actually going to look into upgrading my microphone because I am working on building a new computer. I have it all kind of ready, but now AMD made things complicated by releasing their new chipset. So that's coming out on July 7th. So I kind of want to wait for that. It's kind of like, what do you do when when you're buying a car or anything major, or pretty much anything in life where the new version comes out, even a phone? Do you wait for the new phone? Do you try to get the old one at a discount? Like when do you buy? Like, if you want a new phone, a new iPhone, they always come out in September, October, November, right? So like getting the old iPhone now, if you can just wait 2 more months, you might as well get the new one. It's like it makes things, especially if you're like me and if you really research and think about, I'm like, take forever to make a decision, it makes it way more difficult. But I am trying to get a new computer. But honestly, for my day in and day out, having a new microphone is maybe upgrading is so crucial for me for the live stream. So thank you guys for bearing with me for any of the issues that we've ever had on the live stream and also on the podcast. And I want to thank you guys for your continued support and checking out this episode. Like I said, you're stuck with me for the next 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour, as we talk about all this stuff. But this is a really exciting episode, and this is just going to be about PUBG. So if you guys aren't into PUBG, I would recommend maybe checking out a different episode, or maybe wait till next week's episode when we get Andrew on and we talk about E3, because I was going through my notes. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? This is a solo episode. There's always PUBG stuff to talk about. But then last night, today is June 6th as I record this video. Let's not get ahead of myself. So last night was June 5th. PUBG dropped this developer update and a video about what's coming in summer 2019, and this was completely unexpected and huge news and huge new stuff coming to PUBG, first on PC obviously, and then down to console. And this is awesome. I've been calling it. I thought PUBG is going to make a big comeback this year, especially this summer. I felt like this was going to be a great summer for PUBG, and it seems like it's on track to be the case. And let's talk about what was launched or what was released in this video. So some things that people had been speculating. We have confirmation visuals of the Erangel V2. I mean, that was already happening, so I shouldn't say confirmation, but we have visuals now of Erangel V2, and I don't think people expected or realized, at least I didn't, and a lot of other content creators, that they're completely redoing the map. So it's, everything's going to look better. There's just improvements of the foliage, the grass, the buildings. We're going to go through all that stuff. And they're adding compounds, but there wasn't too much footage about the new compounds in the game. Then we have a new mechanic that is called ledge grabbing, where you can, grab onto a ledge if you're jumping from one ledge to another, or from one roof to another, which we'll get into. A new vehicle, the APC, which is an amphibious vehicle. It's kind of like if you don't know what that is, just Google APC tank or APC military. It looks like a tank, but with like kind of regular big wheels on it. And that's coming into the game to replace the armored UAS, and I'm really, really excited to talk about that as well. And they also mentioned that they're looking into balancing new weapons. And someone mentioned, I didn't see it in the developer post, but I saw on the forum that they mentioned somewhere about trying to get console closer, or maybe on the same page as PC, which in the past, they pretty much admitted that because they were PC first, that it was kind of going to be that way. So I need to find some more information about that. That's kind of just a speculation because I didn't see that in the actual post yet, but we'll see. But it kind of makes sense because they're also going to be working on making the seasons more in line, or the survivor passes more in line with all the seasons. So they made an announcement saying that going forward, every season is going to have its own survivor pass. And this is a really big deal. But for console players, for us on Xbox and PlayStation 4, we've always been behind the seasons, and all of the seasons are all messed up because we're so delayed, right? Like our winter update happened as spring was happening. So for that to make sense and be more fluid, it would only make sense for it to be the same on all the platforms. And I know it takes longer for this stuff to get down to console because of approvals and all that stuff. But if they plan it out, I mean, Fortnite does it, other games do it. It's obviously possible. It's not impossible to make all the updates happen at the same time. Maybe they just need to do the console update first, get it approved, then finish it on PC, and then push it out to all systems simultaneously. Obviously, I'm not a video game developer, so I don't know. But because some companies do it, definitely means it's possible. So let's talk about this. I feel like this is the perfect platform to talk about this update and this information. If you guys want a really short tidbit and you want to see the visuals, go to the official PUBG YouTube channel or Google Wacky Jackie's YouTube channel and look at his video. He's a really nice, tight 4-minute video. He does such a great job. He's one of the best content creators out there for PUBG. He put together a really good video about the changes showing the PUBG footage. Obviously, no one's played on it yet. What's interesting about this is that if you're on PC and you're partnered with PUBG like Wacky Jackie is, they're actually allowed to play this game tonight on the PTS servers and custom games, and then this weekend it's coming live already to PTS, and they published this with a fancy ass video and all this stuff. So they were prepped on this. They might have even given out the information to all the partnered PUBG content creators like Wacky Jackie. So those guys definitely have an advantage over the little old content creators like myself and getting this information and putting out content. But props to those guys. They really do an incredible job. And PUBG and the content creators, both of them do an incredible job, especially Wacky Jackie. So, but for me, I like to kind of, as soon as I see all these updates, my brain goes crazy. I want to talk about everything. I mean, I'm thinking about strategy. What is this going to change? How many things does this affect? It's hard for me to get everything in my brain into a tight 4-minute video. So I think sometimes this is why the podcast is a good platform for myself. And, but unfortunately, because Andrew's not here, I might just be going on some crazy ramble. So bear with me. Hopefully we'll get through this. So first we got the Erangel V2 changes. So this is really interesting. I'm going to pull up some images here on my screen. I'm going to try to put them in the YouTube video, just the short, little like clips on YouTube. But again, you're just going to have to see this elsewhere if you're listening on the audio. I'll try to do my best job to describe it. So what they showed here, they flashed through a bunch of different images of locations on Erangel. If you played PUBG, you should be familiar with this map by now. So they showed us Prison, they showed us Pachinki, Milta Power, excuse me, and a couple other locations. But the comparisons from the old Erangel to new Erangel were in those first couple locations. And I think the Prison is a really good example. So you guys know what Prison looks like. It's the prison located in the rocks on the east side of the map on Erangel. So there's kind of like that looks like the rocks have been kind of caved out and there's a prison in it. But when you actually look at it, it's just a bunch of buildings from far away. It looks like a warehouse. You can't really tell it's an actual prison. And with the new update, you look at it, immediately looks like a prison. The guard post, the way it's designed, it's much more detailed. And then you start to notice that the trees and everything, there's so many more trees and the trees are so much more detailed. There's more grass. It looks like a real area in the map. And what I was saying before and in stream is that with these updates, when you look at them, you can tell that old Erangel was kind of designed, if you weren't familiar with it, what they did is when they made Erangel, they were actually using like a developer. They kind of use like basically, for lack of a better term, or for layman's terms, to make this easy, they basically use clip art or products that were already made, kind of like default items. Like if you've ever made a map yourself, or if you've ever, created a base in a video game, basically it's kind of like using clip art or the default stuff that's there. They would you Google like tree, you search tree in the game, all the generic trees pop up, and then you place trees down on the ground. So that's kind of how PUBG and Erangel was made off the bat. And you can kind of tell that because outside of Prison, when you look in the front, there's like a dozen scattered trees, and then that's it. And then there's like a little patch of grass. But in real life, it probably wouldn't look like that, And now with the new update, the Erangel V2, you can see the trees look much more dense. It looks more like a real forest that's outside of Prison. That maybe they bulldozed a bunch of trees and the mountains out to make the prison, but then outside there's still all the trees. There's much more grass. It just looks more realistic, and this is really, really cool looking to me. And to me, it just makes the game feel like you're more in a real area of the world as opposed to this battle royale arena that was just made in video game form, which makes sense because it is battle royale, but it almost feels like you're playing a map that was made for a video game as opposed to a real location. Sometimes, if you're playing on Battlefield or Call of Duty, you almost feel like you're in a real area because of how realistic it is. But in PUBG, it didn't always feel that way until really Vikendi, in my opinion. I know some people have some qualms with that map, but when you're going through the forest in Vikendi, it looks like a forest that I've been in real life, But in Erangel, if you go through an area, sometimes you're like, what is this area? There's just literally just trees. There's no bushes. There's like a bush, a tree, a bush, a tree. That's not how bushes and trees form in real life. Just not like a bush in the middle of nowhere and then one tree. Obviously in some areas, you guys know what I'm saying though. I hope at least. So that is really cool. And then moving on to this Pachinki update. So visualize Pachinki. We have the city of Pachinki. And again, one of my favorite areas to land, one of the most popular drops on Erangel. But when you actually think about the map, it's really a lot of the same buildings copy and pasted over and over again. And again, you wouldn't just pull up to a town in real life where it's just buildings with nothing on them. And they're just the same buildings over and over again. There's really not a lot going on. There's not a lot of signs. There's just a road, and then there's the cement walls that surround some of the buildings. So then you move to the updated version. Oh, I just hit my mic. Excuse me. So you move to the updated version of this, getting amped up about these changes, kidding around. But you move to the updated version. There's signs on the buildings. The buildings look way more realistic. They look like an area where people might have been living in this town and then they had to evacuate, say some kind of like Chernobyl type thing, nuclear meltdown, kidding around, but they had to get out of there. People haven't been here in a while. So the area has a lot of overgrowth. You look at the original picture, there's really no bushes in Pachinki or any signs of any growth there. And then now it almost has this kind of look to it where there's overgrowth, there's bushes, and this is going to provide a lot more cover in the game. So instead of just the wall, there's going to be bushes next to the wall, overgrown like vines. And it's also going to be more difficult for players to spot people. So there's kind of some pros and cons to this. So a pro, more cover, looks more realistic. You can sell the roof tiles. It looks like some of them are falling off and just a lot more details. But the con of this is people are worried, is this going to be more difficult to load for some people visually and demanding on their computers or even on our Xboxes? Who even knows? I don't even think this is going to be playable on an OG Xbox. And then also, is it going to create more just camping scenarios? Because even in Pachinki, you can see they've added some more grass, and this grass is really dense. And then moving on from Pachinki, they showed some clips of just people walking through the grass in a random field. And Wacky Jackie pointed out that the grass almost looks more like Sanhok grass. And in a couple clips, I thought they were on Sanhok, but they were actually on Erangel because the grass is much darker. It's much more dense. And this is going to change the way a lot of people play. So I feel like we could just keep going into a million different areas here. But let me just make sure we're finished on Pachinki. So much more detailed. It's going to be harder to spot people out, but it's going to be, I think, more fun to play. And then this grass thing. So what's going to happen if there's higher grass, it's more dense? Well, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is that people are going to be laying down more. Obviously, it's kind of a thing that a lot of people say. I say it all the time in stream, you lay down and you die because you're just so much more immobile, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes it's the best strategic decision to make, especially when you're trying to catch somebody off guard or there's just really no cover and it's the only thing you have. So it could incentivize more laying down, which could frustrate a lot of other players because, like I said, sometimes it's a legitimate strategy to lay down, even though I prefer not to. Sometimes you just need to, and it helps people win a lot of games. There's a lot of times where if you're laying down in the final circle, you wait for the other people to shoot at each other, you third party them, you end up with a dinner. I've seen a lot of people win that way. So obviously it's a great strategy, but it can be frustrating when you're just running through a field and there's a guy that's been laying in a bush for 20 minutes, right? Nobody loves that when that happens to them. Most people get pretty frustrated. Again, still legitimate strategy, but this could create more of that, but it also could create more spots for people to just play strategically on the map because right now it's really like, okay, generic, I'm going to go behind the rock, I'm going to go behind this tree, right? And there's really not many more options. So it could just create more strategy. We'll see how it plays. And the next thing I think about is the ghillie suit. So right now the ghillie suit is pretty dark, at least the standard green one. And to me, it doesn't really provide you that much more cover. When you get a crate, you're getting a better weapon, you're getting better gear, but the ghillie suit just looks cool. I don't really know how much it actually is providing you with any extra cover. If you're sitting in a bush, I get it, but even then, the bushes on most of the maps are like light green when the ghillie suit, again, is dark green. So with this darker grass, maybe if you're laying in the grass, you're really going to be camouflaged in the grass. And if anything, that might be frustrating for some people to think about, but that would make more sense because then it gives the incentive to using the ghillie suit and getting it and using it correctly and playing with it. Everything's about incentives and they have to have a purpose, right? So, the crate has a purpose because level 3 gear and the weapons. And the ghillie suit really, to me, doesn't have that much of a purpose right now, in my opinion. I know it's subjective. Everyone's going to have their own opinion, but it doesn't really provide you that much more cover. If anything, sometimes it makes you easier to spot because there's shit dangling off of you and you're kind of like a bigger target, but it doesn't, make your hitbox any bigger. PUBG does a pretty good job with all of their hitbox areas, but it kind of does make you a bigger target. And honestly, when I see someone in a ghillie suit, I want to take them out because I'm like, this guy's probably a good player or he has some good gear and I want to take that guy out and maybe take his weapon. So almost makes you more of a target. Some would say maybe a curse on you when you have the ghillie suit, but that's where my brain is going with all of these new bushes, the darker grass, and all of this stuff added to the game, that people are going to really be able to kind of blend in a little bit more. And that kind of already happens on Vikendi. There's so much more details on the map and the way that the trees are designed that it can be really hard to spot people out, which makes it fun, strategic, but also very frustrating. You hear people complaining about that a lot. And on Erangel, because there's not a lot of details, you can spot someone really fast. There's not a whole lot of detail going on in the buildings. And, even on Sanhok, there's in Peinan, there's the mannequins and stuff like that. But on Erangel, there's not really many things that really troll you other than the bushes that are out in the middle of the field that occasionally look like a person, right? But for the most part, when you're in like Pachinki, nothing really trolls me that much. So we'll see how this plays out, if it's more fun or more frustrating. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, we have I forget if I mentioned this, that we have the new compounds coming into the game, which weren't really shown in this video. But on top of just Erangel being remastered, there are new compounds coming into the game, which I think is going to be really great. Some people are knocking this, but I think this is a huge improvement into the game. And I'll tell you guys why. There's a lot of times, if you can think of Erangel here, this scenario happens to me a lot. Where, say, for example, a lot of times I just dream about bridge camping all the time and bridge trolling. I love it. I think it's a hilarious part of the game. So a lot of times I like to land around one of the bridges, right? Maybe Milta, maybe Ferry Pier. Not a lot of people go to Ferry Pier, so I like to land there a lot. The loot isn't that great. Or maybe on the outskirts of military base, so you can loot, get a vehicle, and block the bridge or do whatever you do. But say, for example, the circle goes north. Say it goes northeast to Stauber. There's not much going on over there. There's just small compounds, gas stations. There's like one small city on the top right where it's like Kaminsky or something like that. So if you land at Ferry Pier with a squad, you loot up, you might have, even with the new loot increases on PC that are coming to console, you might not have the best loot. And then if the circle goes all the way up there, it takes so long to get there that by the time you're there, the circle moves again. It's even smaller. And most of the big areas have already been hit. And then you're relying on, okay, I still need a scope, and you're trying to stop at a gas station to get a scope, and you really can't find anything. And then you're either screwed, you're just using what you got, or you got to try to kill another team. And if you beat them, then you might get looted up, but you kind of get stuck not being able to loot sometimes after the initial circle on Erangel because of the lack of compounds. So in my opinion, having more compounds will allow this to be a little bit more, fair, or you can loot a little bit longer. And they already announced that they're going to be making the initial circle smaller. So that's going to, make my problem I'm talking about even worse, because you're going to have to travel even farther into a smaller area. So with more compounds, it will hopefully help people get more loot, because I think it's going to make the game go faster and be a little bit more fun to play, having the circle smaller. But again, if you don't hit a hot drop or a great spot off the bat, you can be really screwed in Erangel because of the lack of compounds, just to repeat myself. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm really excited to see these changes. And before we move on from that, this is an interesting strategy. I like that they're remastering Erangel, because again, everything is about incentives. And to me, the incentive to play PUBG is around, obviously, new updates and the survivor passes and all this stuff. And when something new happens, it kind of incentivizes you to maybe get back on the game. I play every day. So for me, I'm always playing, but for maybe the average player, they like to see these updates. And to me, I feel like the new maps really help people come to the platform. But in this case, people are worried about having new maps because of map selection, because of player queues, because of having solos, duos, squads, first person, third person. It's already kind of hurting some of the matchmaking. So this is a good way to kind of just improving the map is a good way to kind of make not a new map, but to make it something new, but not really. You're still building off what's already there. So I think that's a great idea. And I wonder if they'll do any of this with Erangel Miramar and Sanhok. Sanhok, I feel like, is in a pretty good place. Miramar is a great map, but could definitely use some maybe visual improvements. And Vikendi, pretty solid. I feel like they did a great job with that map visually. So that's pretty good. So moving on from there, let's talk about this new ledge grabbing mechanic, which is going to completely change the game, especially for players that are really creative and very skillful. Because right now, I feel like if on PC, this is more of a thing. Players do like crazy maneuvers, hopping in through windows and playing on the roofs. Right now, on the stream, a lot of people are always pointing out that I'm always getting on the roof. Some people make fun of me because I'm always trying to get on different roofs, but it really makes a huge difference in the game, because you get sight lines that you're not maybe supposed to get, or that, people aren't normally used to. And I had a great game on Vikendi. I always get on the roof on Vikendi, where my teammate died. I was playing in duos, and I got 16 kills, and I won the game, mostly because I was playing on roofs and killing people. And by the time they noticed where I was, they were either dead or they were almost, completely out of health, and I just finished them off. And because a lot of times when you're getting shot, the first thing is, you're listening, where did it come from? Where was it? And then you're checking windows and behind like trees. That's like where my brain goes first and foremost, right? And when people play on the roof, you're not really expecting that. But I think, again, that's more of like a console thing, because I see a lot of PC players going on the roof. So it adds a whole nother level, especially when most buildings in PUBG are 1, 2, or 3 stories. So you're not really used to looking, for the most part, unless you're in a big city or in Erangel, or I guess you could say Miramar has some big buildings too. But if you're in Sanhok or Vikendi, most buildings don't go over like 2 stories. So you're used to looking kind of on the plane, and this makes it more of a vertical match, especially if they're going to make ledging in the game possible, or grabbing onto a ledge. Excuse me. I mispronounced that, or that's not even a word, ledging. Or maybe it is, who knows. But so what this is if you're going to jump from roof to roof, you're actually going to, if you miss it, you're actually going to be able to hold on to the roof and pull yourself up. They also showed an image of somebody jumping from ledge to ledge. They missed the ledge, they held onto the ledge, and then they climbed over. So this is going to be able to allow you to make jumps that previously you wouldn't be able to make because they were too long. If you're not good at jumping, it will give you a better chance of making the jump, because then you could latch on. But what I'm really curious as to how this is going to work, because right now there really isn't any auto mechanics in the game, right? If you're trying to jump through the window, there's no action button. You really need to line up on the window, and a lot of times you're just caught jumping up in the air and you're getting frustrated. If you're getting shot in the back and you try to jump on the window, sometimes it's just a major fail because it just like won't prompt you to go out the window. So there's really not like a great, I guess what they do is they probably code the window. You can vault through here, right? But that system doesn't really work that well, at least on console. So for this system to work, they're going to have to code the edges of all these things to be able to grab them. So it's going to be kind of like an auto mechanic. I wonder, like, how close do you have to be for it to work? Is it going to glitch out? Are people going to manipulate that? So that's all stuff I guess they're going to have to test out on the PTS and on the regular servers once this goes live. But again, this is just going to be absolutely crazy. You know, people are very creative right now in the game already, jumping through windows and doing crazy jumps. So if you're a good player, you're going to be able to really manipulate this to get into probably some really unique spots. But then that kind of makes me think, like, what about all the invisible walls in the game and the places where you're not really intended to go? Like I was just saying, I've been kind of focused on getting on the roofs and just figuring out, like, what's the craziest spot I can get into. And I noticed some of the buildings have very slanted roofs that you can't stand on. And I saw somebody parachute on one. They shared a clip with me and they died immediately on top of a roof on Paradise that I don't think you're supposed to get on top of. So I just wonder, you know, if they're going to be changing any of that stuff, or if they're just going to leave it the same and say, hey, if you can get here, you can. This area is kind of off limits, because then, you know, people might be trying to get into really crazy spots. So I guess that's kind of self-explanatory, but I just wonder, you know, where exactly they're going to limit that and how many buildings and how many places. But I'm really excited for this mechanic overall, because I don't think it's going to, you know, really affect the game that much, but it's just going to be a nice quality of life that you can now do this. And for the average player, it's just going to make things more simple that you can grab onto a ledge and pull up. But I also wonder, they showed somebody climbing up a pretty big building on Miramar, just a small clip of it. I wonder now if they're going to add some kind of like extra kind of jump mechanic, because right now you can already climb on top of buildings. I mean, climb on top of like boxes, but I wonder if they're going to do it now where if you jump and you can like lean on where you can. And I still wonder what surfaces exactly are going to allow this. Does it have to be a straight square surface? A lot of the buildings in Sanhok are like straw roofs, so they're not really like straight right angles. So again, my mind just goes to all these places, like how exactly is this going to be implemented on all the maps. But there you go. And I think overall people will enjoy that. Then moving on, this is probably one of the things that I'm most excited to talk about in this update. I don't know why, it just looks really cool. Is this new APC. This is the amphibious personnel carrier. I think that's what that stands for. I should have Googled that before the podcast, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But basically this is the amphibious vehicle, basically an armored, I don't know if you want to call this a tank, coming into the game. And what makes this different is that the APC amphibious is able to go through water. So when you look at this vehicle, it basically has the body of a type of tank, but then the bottom has this regular really big wheels on it, and that allows it to go through some type of water. And I don't think, they didn't really show any major footage of this. They showed it coming out of the water, but you could see the beach on both sides. So I don't think this is going to be able to traverse through like the whole area from like a huge body of water, like if you're crossing Erangel from the main island to military base. But I think in some small areas, the first thing I'm thinking is like Sanhok, all the rivers, it's going to be able to just plow through most of those rivers. And this is actually going to be replacing the armored UAS in the game through the flare. And there's so much to talk about here. Again, my mind is going crazy, so I'll try to break it down one by one. So this is interesting. Let's start with the armored UAS. So I was just talking about this on stream, and I forget if we were mentioning this in the last podcast, but the armored UAS definitely kind of stinks. And I saw someone post this on Reddit, and they kind of got like flamed, or people were like throwing shade at them for complaining about the armored UAS. But I thought it was accurate, because the armored UAS, there's no incentive to use it other than just to have it for fun. Because to get the armored UAS in the game right now, you have to be outside the circle and shoot a flare. So when you shoot a flare, you're immediately putting yourself in risk, because you're letting other people know your location. You're outside the circle, and then you're going to wait for the drop to come down, so you're not getting into position. The blue might start to come in. The drop takes forever to get down. And so then you might be fighting the blue zone. You might be running to other players, and it's not even that much more armored. So Choco Taco, somebody told me in the stream here, again, I didn't look this up, just anecdotal evidence here, that it only takes like 30 to 40 more bullets to take out the armored UAS. And from my own experience, that seems to be about accurate, because I've blown up some armored UAS pretty quickly, and it didn't feel like they were that much stronger. And someone in the stream also told me that they got a double kill on somebody in the armored UAS with the UMP. And to me, if you can't shoot out of the armored UAS, if you guys didn't know that, the side of the windows have like, it almost look like curtains that are open, like blinds that are open, not curtains, excuse me. It kind of looks like armored blinds. They're like, there's slots, or they have slits in them. So you can still shoot in between those slits and get a headshot on somebody. So to me, if you can't shoot out of the armored UAS and they're claiming this is armored, it would have been better if it had like bulletproof glass. And I was thinking maybe even run flats. Those are tires that even if you shoot them and they're flat, though they don't really go flat, they can continue to drive. And that still fits in with the realistic lore, if you want to call it, of PUBG. I mean, these things are realistic. Most presidential vehicles and stuff like that have I think probably all of them have bulletproof glass. A lot of military vehicles have bulletproof glass, and like rum flats, a lot of these Humvees have them. So it kind of makes sense. The military is already using this stuff. We've already seen it in a lot of like these environments. And that would be really awesome, because then it would say, hey, you're in this really safe vehicle, armored bulletproof glass. You can't get shot out of it unless they blow up the vehicle, and or something like that. Or eventually, enough shots take out the bulletproof glass, and you won't get a flat tire, because then that makes the incentive of getting into it and driving away, right? And so it looks like, I guess maybe they were testing this or already getting feedback, because this is basically what the APC is. Only going to be available with the flare, replacing the UAZ. Looks like it's completely armored up. It's got some serious glass, and the windows aren't even that big on there, so it might be even hard to shoot somebody in the glass, because the windows are pretty small and they're pretty high up on the vehicle and the way that it's shaped. You got to check out an image of this thing, and they showed a clip of it where there's two vehicles on the road on Erangel, and what's crazy is when I first saw this, it looked like Sanhok because of the way that the grass was so dark and dense. And the APC is just plowing down the road and pushes through the buggy and the UAZ like no problem. And then it flips to another clip, so you don't really know how it plays out. But the wheels are really big. So Wacky Jackie pointed out in his video that maybe this is going to be the counter to the vehicle, is that the wheels are really big. It'll be easy to shoot it out. But to me, the wheels are so big that it would be such a big counter. So maybe they take longer to blow up the tires. Or to be honest with you, if they made the tires run flat, I feel like that would be really cool. It's kind of balanced to me. You can't shoot out of it. It's like a tank, and it's just getting you from point A to point B in safety, but it can still blow up, with a certain amount of shots. So I think something like that would be fair. We'll have to see how this actually plays out. They didn't have too much information on it in this video, but I think it is really, really cool. And even there's also stuff I was just writing down here in my head. You could also balance out some of these vehicles by making it like slower to get in and out of. There's only like one door on the side that I saw. I'm sure there might be, a door on each side, but maybe they make this slower. That could balance it, because then you can't just get out that fast, or everybody can't get out that fast. You need to get out one by one. Stuff like that are always ideas that help balance items like that. And this is a pretty big move from PUBG, because this was leaked content that is into the game. So a lot of people were talking about how this was leaked, and they were right that they got it. But a lot of that stuff is concept art. When you see a leak on PUBG, a lot of people message me. They're like, hey, this is leaked, this is coming. A lot of times, and even PUBG mentioned this, they might be working on something that's in their like internal files, but then they're like, you know what, it's not going to work, or we were just a concept, we're going to move on. So a lot of times things that are leaked could just be ideas from 2 years ago that aren't going to happen, right? Or maybe might not happen for years from now to come. So I was surprised to see this out of all things, though, because everything else in the game vehicle-wise is pretty realistic. We have the Jeep, we have Dacia, the car, the pickup truck, all this stuff, the van. There's not many like military style vehicles. So I thought if they were going to step it up to like military style, maybe a Humvee would come into the game. But moving to the APC is kind of like almost in tank territory. I know there's like not a cannon on this thing, but I'm just surprised they're going this way. But I feel like because you can't really do too much damage with it other than maybe, smashing into somebody, it will be pretty fair. And it makes the flare thing, it makes it like a really achievable item that I think people are going to want to use, as opposed to the armored US, just to repeat myself again. And to talking about some other things here, you might be wondering like whatever happened to other things that were talked about or leaked, like the C4, the riot shield. The riot shield was actually included in a promotional video. And they said that, with the testing of all these things, that they're having issues balancing these items. And I think PUBG is smart for being slow to add this stuff into the game, because PUBG is so much fun because of its simplicity and its focus around gameplay and the gun shooting, right? Or the weapon usage. So I think they're doing a good job slowing this stuff down. It's why PUBG has standed the test of time. If it just got crazy and they throw all this stuff in, it would make it a pretty complicated game, and maybe, they wouldn't have more stuff to update in the future. So I like what they're doing. And they said that they might be putting those into war mode and custom games to test them out in the future to see what people think of them. And I think that's just a great environment to do so. In custom games, war mode, which is like multiplayer for PUBG, the PTS server, they have great places to test all this stuff. And I like the way they're doing this a lot. Just to repeat myself again, I think they're doing a great job. So kudos to PUBG. Such a great game. I like the way that they're doing it. Slow and steady wins the race sometimes, and I feel like that's what PUBG is doing. And I've been saying it all along that I figured this was going to be a great summer for PUBG. And between console updates, so many updates going to PC, this random announcement that people really weren't expecting. They're working on a lot of stuff, survivor passes, remastering the maps. They're probably working on some map either way for the future. New weapons slowly coming into the game. This is just fantastic in my opinion. So very stoked about this. But getting back to this video in particular, this post in particular. So we had Erangel V2. We talked about the new APC. I think I went over everything in my notes here. We got the ledge grabbing. Talked about that stuff. Going to definitely, unlock some more areas, make the game a little bit more traversal. That's not even really a word, is it? I'm just making up a bunch of new words today. And the APC. And then also they talked about some weapon rebalancing. They didn't mention anything in the video about this, but they just mentioned that they're going to be looking at weapons because they know some weapons fall in and out of favor. And I think that makes sense because right now, at least in my opinion, I've just been really focused on using the 7.62 weapons because they just feel so much better and more powerful, especially when you compare them to a 9mm. I mean, when it comes down to it, it seems like when you ask somebody, what's your favorite gun? It's going to be a 5.56 or 7.62 weapon other than the VSS. And the submachine guns are in a weird spot, but obviously not all guns can be in the same place. That's why they're different. That's why they have different uses. Submachine gun, AR versus sniper rifle, right? And a DMR, they all have particular uses. But right now, the weapons seem pretty balanced for the most part. I just think the submachine guns might need a little bit of love, but for the most part, I think it's okay. And I think that they should continue doing, maybe what they could do here is continue decreasing like the hip fire of some of the 7.62 weapons because AR is supposed to be, inaccurate, but really strong. And then make the submachine guns even maybe more accurate hip firing or over the shoulder shooting. So then that makes them, more advantageous to use in a close range situation as opposed to tweaking the damage and stuff like that. Because when you're trying to make a game realistic, you don't have many options. You can't just make 9mm stronger than a 7.62 because that's not realistic. So they're kind of bound by the realism, which I like. I think that's important. But maybe they could make some tweaks elsewhere. And other than that, I mean, we know Wacky Jacking. A lot of people made big criticisms about the UMP45 not being a great weapon. So maybe they'll look to tweak that. I would love for them to make an official post or statement why they changed the UMP45 and the Vector to the Vector 9. If I had to assume, I would guess it was because the MP5 was added to Vikendi, and that's a 9mm weapon. So they wanted to change it up because then they got rid of the Vector on Vikendi. They added back in the UMP. But I'm not, it doesn't really do the math doesn't really add up on that for only being the only reason. So I'd love to hear, why they did that if they're ever going to explain it. But for the most part, the game feels pretty balanced in my opinion. I would still like to see a 5.56 sniper rifle, but these are just like opinion things that, aren't a huge deal. And we talked about the Survivor Pass. I feel like that's going to be great. I forget if I mentioned it in the podcast so far because I've been talking for a little while, but I really feel like, these gaming, everything in life is all about incentives. And while I know PUBG originally wanted to be a game that was very simple, and that's why that you didn't get a big prize when you won. It was just winner, chicken dinner, and that was it. And they were hesitant to add all the Survivor Pass stuff. Now they seem to have gone full-fledged in it because they're doing dancing emojis and all this stuff. But really, life is all about incentives, and it translates right into gaming. And to me, the Survivor Pass is such a great incentive to play the game. For example, I noticed after Survivor Pass Vikendi, a lot of people that I played with were taking a break from PUBG. And honestly, it was a good time to take a break because there was nothing to work towards in the game. So having the Survivor rank, the Survivor Pass, and all this stuff definitely keeps you engaged. And even myself, like right now, I heard they updated Call of Duty World War II. I wanted to try that game out again. I love that Call of Duty. But the Survivor Pass keeps me from playing because I'm like, I want to level up my Survivor Pass. I want to hit level 70. I don't want to waste any time playing Call of Duty. So it gets you, once you're in these Survivor Passes or Battle Pass, if you play Fortnite or Apex, it hooks you into the game because you want to reach the max level. And it's kind of a messed up system. It's good because it's an incentive. And like I said, life is all about incentive, but it's almost like a carrot on a stick that is kind of frustrating, I feel like, for maybe some people. And it's kind of a manipulative system in a way, but it's the new era of gaming and it's a new way to keep people in it. And obviously not everyone cares about cosmetics or hitting level 70, so it's not going to affect everybody. But it's an interesting thing, I think, if you think about it philosophically, how games are changing their monetary system, how the microtransactions, battle passes, and all of that stuff. And getting into that, I wanted to talk a little bit. So we've kind of covered this whole update. Before we end the video here, the podcast, I kind of wanted to talk about Wildcard, and this is going to be mostly for console players, but obviously PC players had Wildcard as well. I think it ended or it just finished for PC. We're just on week 2 right now on console, so we're definitely way behind. But something that I noticed I just realized is that the weekly missions are now disappearing in Wildcard in Survivor Pass number 3. And this is super frustrating to me because not everyone has time to play every single week. Even me, I play almost every single day I stream. What if I go on vacation for 1 week while one of these passes is happening? Then I miss a week of the pass, which I guess I get it. It's just a pass. It's not a big deal. Who cares? So what? You don't hit the max level one time or you can make up for it. I get it. It's really not that big of a deal. We're just playing a video game here. But for the whole just fairness of it all, and I also get that life isn't fair, I just don't get why they would make it where the missions go away after 1 week. In the past, in Survivor Pass number 1 and number 2, we all got the same weekly missions, and you can complete them at any time. So you could complete week 1 if you're on week 3, week 4, week 5, all the way up to the very last week. You can complete all the prior weeks. So what they did now is, now when you each week arrives, you get different missions compared to everybody else, but you can re-roll it up to 5 missions. So what they're trying to promote here is, okay, they are going away and it is different missions, but you can re-roll it. So say you're not a good sniper and you get 10 sniper kills, you can just re-roll that mission. Hopefully you get something that you can achieve, right? Maybe get 10 AR kills. So that's easier. But to me, then it just makes it like you don't know where you stand with other people. Like if you were talking to your buddies in the previous passes, you could say, how far are you in week 2? Oh, I got 9 out of 10. And this week was really hard, but I got 9 out of 10. The other person's like, man, I'm not that good. I can only get 5 out of 10 of them. And it kind of allows you to place yourself with other people and also understand how you guys got to the rank. And again, maybe I'm taking it, this isn't like, I'm not losing sleep over this stuff. I'm just, speaking theoretically here, that I don't like the way it works. And then the fact that the missions are going away, going back to that, I'm just, going through all the stuff that's in my brain. Again, if you're busy at work, if you're a student, if you work 1 week on, 1 week off, which some people say they have that schedule, if you go away from 1 week, you miss a whole week and you're paying money to complete these missions and stuff like that. And the whole theory behind that is kind of weird as well. And sorry if I'm just going crazy here, but like I was talking about this on stream, that it's kind of sad that we're paying money to do missions in a game. Like, it's like, the game should be paying us to do their own missions and play the game. Kidding, but like back in the day, if you're playing Call of Duty, you paid $60 and there's a million missions in the game to unlock all the different weapon skins and all that stuff. And now we're paying money just to do missions and grind. We're paying to grind, which I guess all video games are grind if you want to be philosophical about that. But that is, again, going back to the just full circle here. That's kind of the new system. You pay for the battle pass, you unlock gear that way. And for a game that's $30, I think it's a pretty fair system. And there is a rumor that PUBG might be getting remastered for console and might be going free. That was kind of a leak that came out on like a PlayStation blog. And honestly, obviously that would happen on PC as well. If it went free on one platform, it'd be free everywhere. This is just speculation, just a rumor. But I feel like, honestly, PUBG should just be a free game. It would make sense. It would give people, again, all about incentive to download the game and try it out. And then they could just make money through the game. And if they're going to be doing a Survivor Pass during every season, that's $10. If someone buys the pass every season, which I would because I stream pretty much every day, that's $40 a year, plus maybe additional items. Sometimes they sell bonus packs for $20. You get more things for $20. So say they make anywhere from $40 to $100 off like a hardcore player like myself. And then going back again, full circle to the missions disappearing, I feel like that's kind of a shady thing where they want the missions to disappear. So maybe if you are busy, you might be incentivized again to buy level up passes and spend more money on the game. But philosophically and economically, I really feel like people are already set about how much money they're going to spend on the game either way. For example, I know some people in the stream that as soon as the Survivor Pass comes out, they buy all the level up passes to level up all the way through, so they get all of the items and they don't have to worry about grinding because they really enjoy PUBG and they don't mind spending money on the game. And I will never criticize anybody for ever spending money on the game. I just criticize PUBG for making this kind of tactic in their battle pass. So that person, say for example, they're like, they know they might allot. I allot up to $100 a month to spend on video games. And if it's going to be on PUBG, it's on PUBG, or maybe $50 a month, right? So that person's really going to spend that money either way. Missing 1 week of the pass isn't going to make him buy a level up pass. Maybe a small percentage of people will be swayed to do so. Then there's people like me who I'm like, you know what? I love PUBG. It's the main game I play. I will pay up to $60 a year because that's one video game a year for this game. And on average, I preferably would like to spend anywhere from $20 to $60 a year on PUBG. That's like where my comfort zone is. Me in the middle, $40. That's the 4 survivor passes a year. That's $40. 4 times 10, right? And then maybe say I buy some bonus stuff, 60. If there's something really, really special, maybe I'll push it up to 80, but that's unlikely. I'm more in the $40 to $60 range a year, if even. And then some people are free to play. They're never going to pay any money on this game, or say you're just only going to spend $40 a year minimum, or you're just going to buy the new passes. Those people aren't going to buy level up coupon no matter what, because they have a strict rule. I'm only going to buy the pass. So I think it's already kind of set for the most part how much money people are going to spend roughly on the game. So making these missions disappear, trying to maybe incentivize people to buy coupons is just a wacky system. I don't want to add any extra curses in, but I think that's bullshit, and I don't think they should be doing it that way. It just doesn't really make sense. People can't play every single day or every single week of a game. I get you're trying to incentivize people to play. I just said before, I think incentives are great. That's a little too far in my opinion. But again, it's not the end of the world. It's just a survivor pass. I'm just, again, speaking philosophically. That's how my brain works. Just talking about it kind of for fun, breaking it down. At the end of the day, who cares? It's just cosmetics. It's just a game. And, life goes on. But we're just breaking it down. So that's kind of my opinion about the Survivor Pass. I think the Survivor Passes are great. I really love the I like all the incentives to do. I loved grinding the missions. I don't like grinding regular things. I don't like fetch quests. I don't want to go into a game and pick up someone's milk and bring it back to them and kill 3 enemies on the way. That stuff, I fell out of that stuff. I don't mind playing multiplayer over and over again because I like the competitive nature of multiplayer and taking out other people that I know are real players in real life. And also, I think it's fun when you are using a weapon, like the weapon challenges in the game, and you're grinding them and you're working towards something. I think that stuff is kind of fun. So, but everyone can have their own opinion, and the same argument can be made to single player games, multiplayer games, and all that stuff. And I think I'm going to stop here before I get too rambly on to this crazy subject. So hopefully you guys are kind of understand what I was saying there about all that stuff. Different strokes for different folks, I guess, is how you have to end it on that. But so far, I like what they're doing for $10. I think it's a decent value. You know what I mean? Honestly. And I like it that it's not like a prepaid thing. Sometimes for Call of Duty, I don't want to pay $60 or $40 for a premium pass because I don't know if I'm going to be playing the game. What I like about these battle passes is if you took a break from PUBG, say you didn't even play yet in 2019, and the new pass is coming out, say it doesn't have a name, Survivor Pass number 4. You're like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I feel like playing for the next 2 months. Let me throw $10. That's such a good system. It's actually pretty genius. So I like what they're doing with all that stuff. And I think it's a great way for the company to earn extra money, for the players to be happy, for people who want to get involved to play more. And if you're not interested at all, you just play the regular game and you try to win those winner chicken dinners. So hopefully this wasn't too bad. I'm going to re-listen to this. I know sometimes my brain just goes like in crazy directions. That's why it helps for me to have Andrew here to kind of bounce things off because I'm just go all over the place. I tried to take some notes to help me, but it didn't work. And so we'll see how this goes. Thank you guys for making it through, just listening to myself talk. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know. I probably won't be doing too many solo ones in the future unless Andrew's busy again. If you didn't like the video, I can take the criticism. Please let me know if you didn't like the podcast. Let me know on YouTube or hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever on social media. You can find me most places at Blitz5 or Blitz5 and Friends. Definitely prefer Twitter. Been using that a lot recently. And again, I thank you guys for the continued support. These updates look awesome. A lot of fun stuff coming to PUBG. We'll see what's going on with E3 and other games, the next consoles, PC building coming in soon, maybe a new microphone, updates on the way, and we continue on. Such is life. So upward and onward. And as always, thank you all for making it to the final circle with me today, Solo Q, getting that solo winner chicken dinner. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.